Led by a lifelong interest in healing, Dr. Linda Salvin pursued an advanced degree in epidemiology. Then, after dramatic near-death experiences, Dr. Linda saw the other side and returned with gifts of insight, visions, and revealed wisdom. Now those gifts are ongoing, and she's here to share them with you. Get ready to be amazed. It's time for Dr. Linda Salvin's Psychic Solutions podcast with America's original radio psychic, Dr. Linda Salvin, offering up her always fascinating blend of psychic psychology, clairvoyant insights, and expert guests and alternative healing methods. So pull up a chair and get ready for a visit with the one and only Dr. Linda. And now, live from Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Linda Salvin.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I am Dr. Linda Salvin. I'm a metaphysician and a healer and your host every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday right here on Psychic Solutions Podcast. Today's going to be a very interesting topic. I've got a fascinating man who's been in the radio industry forever, and he's at the top of the chain in his business. You're going to hear all about his experience, how he got into radio. He's very well known in the industry. And yet, the reason I'm bringing him on is not just because of my connection to radio all these years, but I'm a plane crash survivor. I survived a Boeing 737 crash on February 17th, 1981. Mike McVeigh, who I'm going to bring on, avoided a plane crash in September of 1985, I believe. So let's bring Mike on. You're going to meet Mike McVeigh. Hi, Mike.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Linda. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. You're busier than anybody, and I know what you are involved with, but for you to give me an hour, and you're calling in from Cleveland area, where my mom was originally from. Yeah. And I wanted to talk about this because even though I've pseudo-known you through the years, through the industry, hi, how are you? I need this, whatever. But yeah. I met you finally at a conference a month and a half ago. And then when we started talking and we talked about this near miss, I thought, what a great show it would be for me to having been in a crash and you avoided a crash. And we have a picture of Flight 105 and what that plane would have looked like. We've got pictures of mine. We'll bring that in. But before we get into the spiritual stuff and the accidents, talk a little bit about how you got into radio, your passion. You've been everywhere and you helped a lot of people with their careers, and you still are.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from the Pittsburgh area originally, which is part of why we still live in the Cleveland area, because it's only about 3 hours from where I grew up. And I did what a lot of us do in radio. We move all around the country. The way I actually got excited about radio, though, is crazy. My father worked his entire adult life on the Pennsylvania Railroad. And my grandfather on my mother's side, would have been my father's stepfather, was a railroader as well. So we could ride the train for free. When I was about 10 years old, my older brother, who was 7 years older than me, my brother Jim, we used to take a train from our little town outside of Pittsburgh into the city and run around for a day and then come home. There were no cell phones. There was that was a different era, different time. And my mother didn't worry about us taking a bus 5 miles to the train station and into Pittsburgh. Right next to the train station was a radio station called WHJB in Greensburg, PA. And we would stand and stare through the window at the disc jockey, Cowboy Phil. And every so often while the records were on, Cowboy Phil would get up and walk into the back room, and he was probably smoking or getting a coffee or whatever. But I said to my brother one time, where do they go while the records are on? And he said, oh, they play cards, smoke, and drink in the back.
Your brother knew.
And I thought I want to do radio. And that's what got me into radio.
Because of the smoking and the drinking, or because of the records?
All of it, actually.
Of course. It was
all
a party job. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that got me in, and I was a DJ in Pittsburgh and a program director in markets as small as Wheeling, West Virginia, and as large as Los Angeles.
You've done it all. And now you're a consultant and you're helping people with their shows, and you help them syndicate or get onto the next platform or integrate with all the different opportunities, because the digital world is so different from when satellite came about, which was different from FM and AM as the terrestrial moved into these different platforms. It's a people don't understand how radio has shifted, and we have all this. We're inundated. We've got too much. I think we've got too much with the internet. Everybody's a talking head here and there. Look, they got like 50 people trying to talk about politics and whatever. Let's not go there. But you've got your passion. I have mine. And today we're going to talk about a plane crash survivor meeting a plane crash avoider. Now, you were on you were going on a business trip. Is that what you were doing that day?
Yeah, I was. So I was in and Midwest Express Flight 105.
Here's a picture of that plane. It's not the plane, but it's the exact replica of a plane Mike had stepped aboard. Go on.
And it went down as it took off out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin on September 6, 1985. And so the flight actually, what's crazy is I was on the flight, that plane from Madison, Wisconsin to Milwaukee, and then the flight number changed, but it was the same plane. And as we were sitting on the ground in Madison, Wisconsin, they came on, there was a delay, a mechanic came on because they had a light on about one of the engines. And so they came back and said, hey, this is true. They said, we replaced the bulb. It's fine. We're good. And we flew into Milwaukee. Now I'm sitting on the same plane that's going to go from Milwaukee to Atlanta. And I had been visiting radio clients that I consulted in Madison, Wisconsin. I was going to visit clients in Atlanta. I'm sitting on the plane. What just crushes me is I talked to people around me. I saw people with young children. And fortunately for me, Linda, I carried on. Because if I had checked my bag, I probably would have stayed on the plane rather than go through the hassle. And when they came on and they were saying there was a problem and they had an engine light on, I just looked at the guy beside me and I said, I'm off. And I got up and I took my bag out of the overhead and got off the plane because they had the door open from letting mechanics on again. I went out to try to find another flight on the same airline to get to Atlanta.
Wait, back up a second. Oh,
there wasn't. No, that was my alarm. Let me make sure it's off.
So that you're on time for the broadcast.
Exactly. That's what happened, and I had turned it off. I thought, but
that's okay. I want you to back up because I do remember your conversation with the stewardess or somebody, and they said no, the gate's closed, and I think you needed permission to open the door to get you on the ground because there's that time where they say the FAA says no more, you're done. The door's shut. You got off.
They had the door open actually to let the mechanics on, but I said I needed to get off, and they had said no, we can't let you off because they had officially left, and the door was open, and I just said no, I need to get off, and so they did pull the gate back because the mechanic had walked up the steps. They pulled the gate back, and I left. And so I didn't even go to Atlanta. I was just so frustrated with trying to get to Atlanta that I went all the way back out to the ticket counter. Now, keep in mind, in 1985, you didn't walk through security.
No, we didn't have security back then.
No, so I could walk all the way out to the ticket counter and went out and got on a United flight and flew home. I did not know the plane had crashed because the guys from the radio station were not planning to meet me that evening when I got to Atlanta. So I was just going to fly back to Cleveland and call them and say, we need to reschedule the trip. The program director for the station I consulted is a man named Dennis Winslow. Dennis was in radio for many years, so some of your listeners and followers, viewers will know who he is if they're involved in media. And I get to my house, the home phone rings, and I answer it, and it's Dennis. And he says, oh, my God, I'm glad you're okay. I don't know what I would have done if Doris answered. Doris is my wife. And I said, what do you mean? I didn't know it had crashed.
I'm getting chills. Go on. That's when you get chills, people. That's this confirmation of spirit being told the truth. Go on.
And Dennis said, yeah, the plane you were on crashed. And I'm like, what? And he said, yeah. It crashed after, and now I got chills. He said it crashed after it took off out of Milwaukee. And so I had no idea. I literally had come into the house moments earlier and had put my bags down and told my wife I needed to call Dennis and tell him that we needed to reschedule this trip. And that hit me. And what they found out later is they do in all of the news stories you look at, and you can Google Midwest Express
I have it right here.
5. Yeah. And it will tell you it originated in Madison, Wisconsin. They do tell you that the engine caught fire as it took off out of Milwaukee. But
There were 27 passengers and 4 crew members. Most were business people. They're also claiming pilot error. But go ahead. I think most of it probably was mechanical.
Yeah.
That would have triggered the fire. Go on. I'll hear it from you more than.
Yeah,
what
they
I-
don't. Well, they don't tell you at all that this plane had a light on in Madison, Wisconsin. That there was.
Can I
an engine light on.
interrupt something with what happens with the NTSB that I learned personally? And we'll get to my story in a moment. But when I survived a plane crash, which we'll get to, I got a copy of the NTSB report because I sued, and I'm also writing a book, and I want to put pieces together. And I've been doing this for 40 years. It just never came together. There's always another chapter. But when I received the report, and I have a copy of it right here on this desktop with this laptop, they black out so much of the report that you can't see the truth. They left out a lot of what I knew then, but go ahead. And you're right. The media didn't talk about what you experienced, even with the light bulb. No, they're good at changing the story. The facts.
Yeah, and I've read the story several times over the years. There's a book out about it as well, about that plane and that crash. But I went back online and refreshed myself before our conversation today just to make sure I had the
Oh,
dates.
of course, it's a long time. It's 39 years for you.
Yeah, but just reading it again, to your point on pilot error, where they say, well, they believe the pilots overcorrected and the plane went into a stall. Clearly, there was a mechanical problem because that plane had problems before it took off from Madison, and we were delayed out of Madison into Milwaukee. And clearly, they came on with a light again, and the mechanics coming on is what I just went, I'm off this plane. There's something going on here.
Something intuitively or psychically or an angel or an ancestor, something pushed you where the other people didn't make it off. They perished. They went down. Something took care of you, and you're still here, and you've done your service, and you have your family, and you have your life. And my question with this, I'm sure you don't dwell on it, but there's times you probably think about it. Every time you get on a plane now, you question. I do. I still get white knuckles when I fly, and I fly everywhere, but I have PTSD as a result. You can't not, after surviving the crash versus what you went through knowing about the crash. I mean, that's still a big head trip. It's still like, I could have been there. I could have been me, Something saved you spiritually, physically, emotionally. But were there repercussions, or do you still sometimes, besides getting grateful, feel like what could have happened that day? Like that if you didn't listen and push to get off the flight, do you still review that inside you in your emotional state? Does it bother you?
No, I don't. I mean, I can't say it doesn't bother me. It bothers me when I think about it, or like reading the article again. I could see the faces of the man beside me that I talked to from, Madison to Atlanta, because he stayed on the plane. He was still on the plane, and I talked to him on the way down. And like I said, I saw there was a woman that had a young girl with her, like maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, walking down the aisle of the plane, girl. And so I had bad dreams for a while after it.
Sure.
I had bad dreams for a while after it, thinking of those people were just like me, and God's intervention,
divine intervention, however you want to talk about why that versus you.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to my experience for a moment, then we'll bring all this together.
Sure.
Rebel, show the Boeing 737 that I boarded taking off in San Jose, California. And then what happened? Well, let me tell the story. You can leave that, and I guess you should bring back to my. I was sitting in the coffee shop with my partner named Leo at the time. I was an environmental health specialist working for an insurance company here in LA, and my first out of town assignment with this company was to go to San Jose, go to the hospital with which the insurance company insured, and we had to check the autoclave for ethylene oxide exposures, because if there was too much, of course, an OSHA work, you got to save the health of the employees, which are the doctors, nurses, and all the patients, blah, blah. So we had to check for levels. And so the autoclave, which sterilizes equipment for surgery, we told the staff, please do not open this door, because we had test equipment for air sampling, and do not touch it. We'll be back in 2 hours. Of course, we went back in 2 hours, and somebody had opened it, invalidated our work. We just packed it all up and went back to the airport, because there's stupid people that are ignorant. They have to go look to see what you're doing, even though you say don't touch, right? Is the stove really hot? Find out. So we went back to San Jose Airport. My father was a pilot with a Cessna when we were children, and he always said, and he flew all over the world with my mom. He was Merchant Marines. He was always traveling. He's turning 95, so he doesn't travel anymore. But he always said, when you travel, sit in the back of the plane. It's the last to go down if you're ever going to crash. And I always remembered that. I didn't really pay attention, but we had back end seats somewhere on the tail, and Leo decided to go bring us up front. So we ended up second row on the right, and I was in the middle seat with Leo on the left and a strange man on the right of me. And I started to panic. Oh my God, Dad always said, what if? But prior to that, when we were sitting in the coffee shop, and the hangar, or the car is just a car. The plane's sitting right there, and you see it out the window, and you're about to board in a half hour. Mm. And I said to Leo, I said, doesn't it look like it could crack there? So I saw a fuelage or an exhaust settlement line at the body of the plane, kind of like where that one window is a little highlighted, because it's a window that would open right above the wing. Mm-hmm. And Leo looked, says, I don't see anything, you're just tired. Now go to the crash. Rebel. There we go. The plane cracked in half, almost exactly where I had the vision.
Wow.
Okay. So I'm going to leave this up here, and then I'll bring you back. I don't want to hide you, but for purposes, that plane, what happened is we hit the ground. I looked at the steward and thinking, I wonder if he ever thinks about crashing. It's one of the risks of the job. And then we started circling. Something didn't sound right. This is at John Wayne Airport in Orange County, California. And the sound of the throttle, everything made eerie sounds. All of a sudden we come in, okay, that's enough, Rebel, thanks. We started to come in, and we hit the ground. You know how sometimes you come in, you touch, you bounce, you come back in because you skid. Well, this time we hit, we went up, we went down, we came back up, then we crashed. The landing gear was stripped, an engine fell off, and then of course it cracked in half. Probability, I have all the old newspapers that are so yellow, but I think New York Times called it the miracle flight 336, because the probability of all of us surviving for both planes was 1 billion to 1. They didn't put it properly in the report, which is why you know a little detail about the light bulb, and they didn't quite admit to pilot error. But now, Mike, you fly all the time. You almost fly for a living.
Yeah.
Right? What's the probability of a plane coming in on the same runway another plane's taking off? They don't do that. And that's what happened. So we avoided collision with that other plane, which we both would have exploded had we met.
Yeah.
Well, I just remember, like, when they say your whole life starts to flash before you during a near-death experience, and this is pre-internet, just like with you, it's pre-internet. You couldn't Google this stuff back then. Mm-hmm. You know, why was I out of my body for 4 months? What were all these feelings? Why did I become psychic? All these weird things happened as a result of that day, which most people can't understand. But when they see the picture, they kind of understand. I got a gift because of that. When you're in a trauma, things change. I was taken to the hospital. I was hospitalized for 4 days, but I was out of my body for 4 months, 50 feet tall on the left and 5 feet 8 on the right. And all this psychic spiritual stuff came together. But people, if you're just joining the show or you're listening, you're trying to figure out what I'm talking about. Mike went on a plane and had a feeling, or something said, don't get on it. I had the vision the plane could crack, but I didn't know back then that it was actually a premonition. I had no clue that that's what I was feeling. I was a little panicked about being in the second row versus the 25th row. But if you
Yeah.
look at the picture, I probably would have been hurt even more where the
Yeah.
guy had punctured, he had one punctured lung and 6 broken ribs, I think. That was the worst of the injuries. 35 of us were taken to the hospital in an ambulance. It was it was not a fun day. And I still am every day. I don't think about it every day, but I turned it around after years of healing and finding a new direction in life, that it became a blessing. I was kind of indoctrinated into radio, helping people psychically, spiritually, but I had to go through a tremendous event. And then I got hit by a fire truck, and then I totaled a car, the white light. So I'm connected to the other side in ways most people will never understand.
Mm.
But spiritually, on your side, did it open you up? Did you start to, and I don't talk about religion. It's not about religion. There's something out there, just like you said, divine intervention, something got you out of there. I know you've worked with psychics. I know you're familiar with my field. It's not like you're closed-minded. But did it awaken you? Did it help you see how the coincidences work, or how things, besides the fragility of life, we all know that as we get older, but did it open you up?
I don't know. I am spiritual, and I'm a believer, and believe in people who are gifted like you. I already was deeply into my faith. And so, certainly I gave lots of thanks. You do question, what am I here for? Something greater or bigger that I should be doing. I've always tried to be a kinder, gentler person. What little you know of me, you probably see that my approach is a kinder, softer, gentler person who applies the golden rule to everything. And
people's got the most amazing socks in the world. This guy has socks, psychedelic colors, every tie, every.
Well, you can see from this shirt that I do dress. My collars have,
fashion galore.
Yeah,
he makes a statement, but these socks. Yeah, go on.
But I don't. It's not like I was one person and that experience changed my life. Yeah. I think it deepened my, spiritual feeling and my belief that there is a greater power, and there's, there are people who can talk to the dead. There are people who are intuitive. There are people.
We're mediums and psychics. It's a whole nother.
Yes. Thing. Yeah. And so I do very much believe in all that. And that could be perhaps also why the dreams after that experience, lingered so long, because those people were now souls.
And they may have come to talk to you, or they may have been trying to reach you, or they may have wanted to thank you, or they may have wanted to say you were right, or they may be there to protect you. We don't know, but that's an interesting statement, because when I deal with people who in the Pittsburgh area or the Philadelphia area, or up by Gettysburg, where it's all burial ground, a lot from the Civil War. People's properties now have a lot of the people who were killed or, from the war, and then their house may be haunted, and they wonder why. I said, it's just burial ground. You've got a spirit that's blah, blah, blah. And I can usually find it, identify it, and tell them how to get rid of it. But it's real. And a lot of times souls can be trapped between the physical world and the spiritual world. And other times they're here to help us, like little angels, and guide us, or kind of tap you on the shoulder and not know. But if you were having dreams, some of it would have been the trauma, and it's shocking. It's shocking. I mean, you got home, you didn't even know, and then you get this phone call from Dennis, and it's like, what? Yeah. And then you find out, when you just said, I've had it, I'm tired, I'll go home, take another flight. You just changed your day, but you were oblivious.
I will share with you. Here's a little something. I've never shared this, so I'm giving you, and this is your power, because you make people like me open up even more. But I have a little prayer that I do say before a plane takes off every time I'm on a plane and I travel. And I actually, pray to God and say, I pray for safety for myself and for those around me. And then I pray, but if it is God's will that something is to happen, then and
Oh
it's
my
not his will for me to survive, then please let me help others who are important, who you have a plan for, to survive. And that's a little prayer that I always say to myself before the plane takes off, whether I'm
That's,
connecting or whatever. That's my prayer that came from that moment.
then you did have a spiritual awakening, and you did have something take over to guide you. So up, and I became of service in a different way, not just doing, public health and insurance companies, but I started as a psychic. I ran for years, for 12 years. I didn't understand, didn't want it, but it happened. It started that day because something entered me and I was called to walk in. It was all explained to me back then, and I had to grow into it. And then radio opened up in 94, and I became one of the first radio psychics in an area that nobody wanted to touch. But yes, that kind of trauma. So maybe you didn't have the awakening, but to say that kind of prayer, to step on board, like when we're going through, after you've been ticketed and you're in that little hallway and you're getting right to the threshold and you say hello to the steward or stewardess. And I've always been told, tell them you're a plane crash survivor. Most are oblivious. They don't care. And then some will take me because I get anxiety sometimes when I fly. And I have to sit in the bulkhead because I got to brace myself a lot of the times because I don't know how I'm going to react if we hit turbulence. It's in me. I can't say push a button and go on halt. It doesn't work, know.
Yeah.
But I am like you. As I'm walking, I'll start saying a little prayer, or sometimes I'll say, like when I got to New York, 6 weeks ago, when I got on the plane, I said, God goes to New York. God will be with me. It's not going to happen again. They're not going to do that to me again. But I still, as much as I talk to God, pray, whatever's taking care of me and the plane and the pilot and all of us, it's like, no, I'm on this plane. It's not going to happen again. But you never know. What are the chances? You never know. And with what we're hearing in today's day and age of what's going on out there, we don't know anything. Look what happened over the week at Friday when all globally the internet thing went out. We're so lucky a plane didn't fall out of the sky with all that happened with the control towers and the lack of communication.
Yep. Yeah, I was back in New York on Friday trying to get back.
When that happened?
Yeah. And so I was lucky. My plane was only about 4 hours late. And so we got out of there. But it was, I got up that morning and my plane was about 11 o'clock departure. And so it was about 9 a.m. When I was leaving the hotel to get to the airport and get checked in. And I'm a guy who uses apps on my phone and for the flying and everything. And they didn't all sync up. I mean, the times were right, but it said I was at gate 71 at LaGuardia. I get to gate 71 and there's a flight going to Portland, Oregon, there. And so I go up to the counter and explain to the woman. She goes, oh, hold on. Yeah, everything's messed up. You're at gate 94. And
so go all the way through the terminal.
Way back. Exactly. I could use the exercise, so it was okay. But and there were no screens. The screens that tell you the times and where
everything was blank or dark, right? Because everything had fallen down. We depend on the internet, and we depend so much with the digital world today.
Yep.
But I want to go back to your prayer because I'm still feeling what you have shared with me, and I want to thank you for acknowledge. Yeah, it is my gift. It is part of it. I kind of I don't push a button and like to make it, but somehow people start to relax enough to share something that they don't normally talk about. I'm grateful for that. And that's one of my talents, gifts, whatever. But it's a blessing. And yeah, you were of service. Think back to 1985, 39 years ago, and how many people you have helped in their career. And also, it's not just always radio and which syndication or which studio. You talk about the family, you talk about yourself, you talk about a trip, you talk about food. You start talking, you get to know the people.
Yep.
You get to become friends. The last thing you said to me when we had our little meeting a few weeks ago is like, I may not be able to do this, but I can be your friend. And we started talking, and that's when I opened up a little and you opened up, and that's how this happened because we started talking. It's not just business. People think you're categorized or you're in a pigeonhole. And no, we're all human. We're human. Yep. I don't think the human factor gets lost out there, especially in the digital world. Everybody's got to look perfect, but they don't express, and we are emotions, we are thoughts, we are energy. But that energy with you was guided to help in this industry that you fell in love with from that train station, looking into a window when you were 10 years old, and you made a whole life out of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have that.
Blessed. No, I am blessed. I
You
absolutely.
followed a dream. You
Yeah.
and your kids are in radio too, right? Are
Yeah,
your
my
kids-
youngest, yeah, the youngest daughter is an air talent and personality and works for McVeigh Media, helping our radio clients with social media. Her husband, Ryan, produces radio shows, was at Westwood One for a long time, the radio network, and for about 10 years. And he produces radio shows and also podcasts for people. Our other daughter, Nikki, is a podcaster herself. And there's a syndicated show called The Bob and Sherry Show, and she contributes to their blog and their website weekly. And she also, McVeigh Media has a show prep service. For people not in the business, that's just kind of like a daily periodical that gives people on the air a lot of ideas of things they could talk about. So Nikki, our oldest daughter, creates that with my wife. And my wife runs the business side of our business. So it is a family business.
It is. I think that's wonderful. It's I'm kind of envious. I wish I had something like that. I remember as a kid, I'd say to my dad, because I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, and I was Joni Mitchell. I still play guitar. But and I'm going back in the studio, luckily, to do some more songs. You never know. But I always said to my dad, why couldn't you be in film, clothing, fashion, or music? Those were the only things I loved, you know. But he had his job, and he was number one in his field in electronics. Steve Jobs was a customer of my father's when he was building Apple. So yeah, it's like where you help people build their career. My father's product line helped get the first rocket to the moon because of the type of electrical, whatever it was. But Steve Jobs up in Northern California went to my dad's distributorship and started buying the products that they used on Mylar when they were doing the printed circuit boards. And all of that then transferred into, see you tomorrow, thank you. That transferred into the computers. And I remember my father saying, Linda, and I said, what? And I guess I was in college. He said, the way of the future is computers. I said, okay. Well, look at us now. Who knew, right?
Yeah.
So we all have those little stories of remember when, or did you know this? And you saw somebody spinning, you know, records, and here you are. And I remember my dad saying computers. Well, without that, with Jobs, we may not be here on StreamYard.
Oh, yeah.
Or your phone and all the apps. It's all the evolution, just like radio from AM, FM, satellite, digital. It just all evolves. We're still here evolving as people using our brains. I just wish a lot of people would be less destructive with their brains and be more productive, save the planet, stop abusing animals, stop abusing people, stop abusing ourselves. That's my thing. I mean, I'm not Mary Poppins and Pollyanna, but I try to bring the balance back because we've gotten so out of control. And it hurts because, yeah, we grew up in a life that doesn't exist anymore, but it's people like you and me that still have a message for the younger generation. You know, we're the old folks now, but
there's value to time on Earth. There's value to time on Earth,
and a lot of people forget that.
Yeah, and the things that if you're able to share those things, I favor young people who come up to me and introduce themselves or will, want to grill me or want to spend time with me. And so I give back a lot. I speak, the Radio Advertising Bureau owns something called the National Radio Talent Institute. And every year I speak at that at the University of Georgia to a group of young people who want to be in media. I'm part of the Mentoring and Inspiring Women group. I'm in the Alliance for Women in Media.
You write for Radio Inc. You write amazing articles. I've been more reading.
Thank you. But those things are all about helping somebody, teaching somebody. Back to Greensburg, PA, when I, wanted to work in radio and get started. There was a woman at the church group that I was a part of who had been a Mrs. Pennsylvania, A lot of people don't realize that not only do you have Miss America, but you have Mrs. America.
Right.
And she had been Mrs. Pennsylvania, and she was friends with the guy who did the Dialing for Dollars movie on Channel 4 in Pittsburgh. And, she said to me, if someday your parents would allow you, we'll drive in together and watch him do his job, and he'll talk to you. And so we did that. She convinced Dale Taylor, the guy who did it, and Dale Taylor listened to me and gave him my desires. And he said, the most important thing to be able to do is learn how to read and sound like you're not reading. And he said, if you can read and sound like you're just telling the story or speaking it, then you're part way there. And his advice to me was to read the morning newspaper aloud every morning. And so this is while I was in junior high and then high school before I got into radio. And my mother used to say, why don't I have to turn the radio on in the morning? Mike reads the news to me.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
You've got a hell of a story. You've got so much to share. You are a mentor, and we've got about 8 more minutes, and I want to start bringing it all home with some extra messages or whatever you may want to throw in from your life. And then when we sign off, stay backstage for just a moment because I'll reappear.
Sure.
And we'll say bye. But the people you've met and the new people you meet, and the same with me. Some people just want. I have to charge for my services. Like you have to charge. You can give a lot away, but there is a boundary where you gotta, like, if you're taking on a client, they pay you for your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise, your connections, or whatnot. Yeah. And it's the same with people. Like they think, well, if I got a gift from God and I'm psychic, why do I have to charge? Well, it's still a business. I still operate. Who pays for the internet? Who pays to do the shows? Who does the production? Who does the post-production? Who does the bookings? Who pays the merchant services? People forget that there's, like, your wife does the business. You're the talent. You're lucky. You've got someone to help you, because I do all, and it gets overwhelming because I got to go do the books and you got to do the talent. And it's hard. It's hard just doing what you do.
Yeah, and let me tell you the line that I use.
I may hire her.
Yeah, well, you're welcome to. She's very good. There's 2 things that I'll tell people. One is the people who just, they ask for advice, and I'm happy to give little bits and pieces of advice. And like you alluded to, if I don't feel I can satisfy somebody, I don't want to take their money because I don't want them to be mad at me later when I'm not able to accomplish what they want. But I will say to the person who just keeps asking, I'll say, question for you. If I painted cars for a living, would you ask me to paint your car for free? And they usually do one of those. And I go, no, I'm not trying to be rude.
You're trying to make a statement like, hey, this is work.
I say, I understand that you just think we're talking because we're talking, but this is what I do for a living. And so that's one thing I'll do. The other is, and you've probably had people do this to you at some point, I'll have a lot of people, because of the global connections I have, come to me with an idea, and they'll say, hey, I've got a great idea. I need you to help me make this successful. I can't pay you,
but I'll pay you on the back end.
Yeah, I'll give you 25%.
Of nothing. Yeah, I get that too.
Let
me help you.
Yeah, and so I'll say to them generally, well, wait, I get a better idea. How about I do this for real and I give you 25%? And they'll go, wait, what?
Oh.
And I'll go, my point being, you're telling me you can't get this done unless you have me. So you can't expect me to be the one who makes it a success. And you only want to pay me 25% somewhere down the road. And it probably sounds like I'm being greedy, but again, the reality of it is
it can't get done because you know what needs to be done. He's got the concept.
And the time that you invest or that I invest, our time is our livelihood. And so it's how we make money. And so if I have 4 projects that I'm getting paid on the back end, then I have to explain to the people at the grocery store that I'm not going to be able to pay them till this project comes to fruition.
People
Right.
say, how come, you got a gift from God? And you know what I usually say? Well, so did John Lennon.
Totally.
It's the same thing. And I'll say to somebody, oh, you're a hairdresser? How many times you cut hair for free? Oh, I do. It's like, all right, that didn't work. Or, okay, you're at the market. Okay, can I have a free head of lettuce and some steak? No, you got to pay for it. Really? Then you got the farmer, and you've got the butcher, and you've got the overhead, and you got to pay for the lights in the market, and you got to pay for the property and the taxes. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, yeah, I have to work too. Just because I'm a consultant
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's free. Unfortunately, I'm a little too giving still. My boundaries have gotten better where I'm like, if you really want something, please book an appointment. Yeah, but I only have one question. I said, everybody has one question. And you get that just one, and it's hard. It's not that you're being mean, but it's your experience, your strengths, your knowledge, your wisdom, and your talent. You've earned it.
And again, people like you and I are giving, caring humans. And so I'm sure there are times when you just help someone
Oh, of course. And it feels good.
if they need
Because
it.
it comes back. It comes
Yeah.
back. It's like paying
Yeah.
it forward. But when
Yeah.
it comes to business things, I just last
Yeah.
Tuesday was asked by a 2-time Emmy Award-winning producer if I would channel in this documentary he's doing on somebody that was alive in the 50s or 60s. And he just mentioned, I said, oh, the guy was murdered and Marilyn Monroe's involved. That's all I said. And they were here on Thursday and they filmed this thing. I can't really talk about it, but I was right. There was no pay. I didn't care. It was a 20-minute thing, but I can't pay you. I can't pay you. It's like you hear this all the time. But this one, I know his other 2 projects, he didn't make money, but he won awards. So the PR might be good down the road for like, what, a 2-minute spot. But if it's a long-term, deep commitment for something, no, I will get paid, as will you.
Yeah.
People, we love talking. That's why we're in talk media. We're talkers.
Yes.
And that's part of what we do. But we still have to catch ourselves, like, stop talking. It's hard sometimes because you just want to spit it all out. Like a little mockingbird, just keep talk. In closing.
Yes.
Somebody's out there thinking, God, I want to be in radio. I want to be a broadcaster. I want to do a podcast. I want to start a YouTube. And they come to me, I want to do my own business. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. Well, what do you want to do on YouTube? I don't know. I just want to make money. Well, you got to figure out what you want to do. What's your passion? Where do you start? Someone comes to you, Mike, I really got to get in radio. Okay.
Yeah, my response is, much like you just said, I try to find out, do they want to be an on-air talent? Do they want to sell? Do they want to create audio imaging? Are they a producer, production? What part of radio is it that's their hot button? And today, there are so many more opportunities to get experience. A lot of people who are in our business will say, well, we did away with the farm team because now overnights are mostly syndicated programming. They're not live people. Same with a lot of weekend shifts. But my response is, I created a fake radio station in my parents' attic and played radio. Today, I would probably have a podcast, or I would do my own radio show on a stream, or I would record things and post them on YouTube, or push out bites and clips on social media. And so today there are so many more opportunities to sharpen your skills as a talent. And people like me who supply talent to people who are looking for talent, go to Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. And I look at those things. I've hired people who have those experiences to be on the radio or to be part of a podcast and do something bigger.
I think it's great. I adore talking to you. We're out of time. We're going to have to wrap this up. Rebel, why don't you come on for a second? You've listened to me and worked with me for a year. You've heard about the accidents. This is the first time you've actually seen the plane, I think. And now you're meeting somebody that avoided and got off a plane to avoid dying. I'm on this station for just 3 more shows, and I'm going to another outlet. But as we wrap this year up, what do you have to say about this, Rebel? Because you've watched this whole journey And here we are. Now we're talking about the actual incident and what happened. Even though he wasn't in the accident, he still changed.
Yeah.
It's just mind-blowing that both of you in both experiences, y'all both knew something's coming. And it's almost like, Dr. Linda, you had to live through that experience the way you lived through it. And Mike, you too, you had to not be on that plane because were there any survivors, did you say?
No, they all died. There's 27 passengers and 4 crew members.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't your time to be on that plane. You were needed for other things, so you had to get off that plane.
Yeah. Yes.
It's amazing listening to this stuff. It's funny that, not funny, haha, but it's funny that the anniversary of Pan Am that went down in my city in 1982 just came up.
What was that date, Rebel? It was July.
I mean, July 2nd, I think, 1982.
And mine was 81. That was 82. Mike's was 85. It happens. But yes, as you said, and the will of God, and the one statement that I have in my mind daily, especially when I freak out, the money's not here, or business is slow, or where am I going to move, and what's this, blah, blah. The will of God will never lead me where the grace of God cannot keep me. Simple. Be still, for I am God. And I just talked about God like butterflies. And I'm going to close the show with the prayer before we say goodbye to Mike. And I mean, not the prayer, but it's a Hindu poem that I have said on the air for 30 years, teaching people how to see God, not religious, but the Sanskrit poem says, God, are you real? And the child whispered, God, speak to me. And a meadowlark sang, but the child did not hear. So the child said, God, speak to me. And the thunder rolled across the sky, but the child did not listen. So the child said, God, speak to me. And a star shone brightly, but the child did not see. So the child said, show me a miracle. And a child was born, but the child did not know. So the child exclaimed, touch me, God, show me you're real. Whereupon God reached down and touched the child, but the child brushed the butterfly away and walked away unknowingly. And I teach it as simple as a butterfly. And I have done that for years. It's all over whatever media I'm on out there. And we just got to watch all the butterflies and let them guide us on our journey. That's how I came to believe all this after the trauma. I mean, like I said, it took 6 years after the accident to even feel normal. It's traumatic. But you went through your shift and you opened up, and you're amazing, Mike. And I'm going to thank you again for joining us, and stay backstage. And if you want a copy of this to use for put it on your own, whatever, I'd love it.
Thank you.
I'll send you a link. But this is Mike McVeigh, people, and he's in Ohio. He's one of the biggest talent managers in radio, and he's everywhere as a teacher and a mentor and a broadcaster and a marketing guy. You know, all aspects of radio, but everybody loves you. Oh, you met Mike. Yeah, I met Mike. Mike McVeigh. First day I saw him at the convention. Hey, love your song. Thank you for saying thank you, DJ. Appreciate it. And we will talk to you soon. This is Dr. Linda saying goodbye from Psychic Solutions Podcast. Stay tuned. Tomorrow I have a gym fitness specialist fanatic coming in from Florida. She's going to talk about her experiences with me as her psychic, doing candle magic, and how she redeveloped her fitness center. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. Again, we just had Mike McVeigh from the radio industry talking about a near miss on a plane crash. I am a plane crash survivor, but somehow the universal God, the energy, wants us all here for you and us. Take care.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Dr. Linda Salvin's Psychic Solutions Podcast. You can reach Dr. Linda at 888-509-1077 or at lindasalvin.com. Need a breakthrough of your own? Ready for answers or insights nobody else has? Reserve your own one-on-one in-person chat. Dr. Linda isn't just for other people. Dr. Linda gets results for you. And it's easy. Contact details are on screen now. Just click on lindasalvin.com or call toll-free 888-509-1077. That's lindasalvin.com or toll-free at 888-509-1077.